26 places exist where time itself grinds to a halt for exactly 1 hour each year. This is not a fantasy, but a recurring theme found deep within the world's oldest mythologies. We are about to journey to forgotten valleys and sunken cathedrals where ancient legends claim the fundamental rules of reality are temporarily suspended. By the end of our exploration, you will understand the profound psychological and cultural reasons why this specific 1-hour pause captivates the human imagination across continents and centuries. What secrets are whispered during the absolute silence of a mountain valley, and what truths are revealed when a waterfall hangs motionless in mid-air? These stories challenge everything we assume about the unstoppable flow of time. What moment from your own life would you choose to hold in such a perfect, endless hour? This universal theme of a sacred pause reveals a deep psychological need. Ancient peoples, living in a world governed by unpredictable natural forces, created these stories to carve out islands of possibility within an otherwise relentless timeline. The choice of 1 hour is deeply revealing. It is not a day which would feel like an impossible disruption to daily life, nor a fleeting second which would be too insignificant for any meaningful event. 1 hour is a human-scale interval long enough for a journey, a conversation, or a life-altering decision. It is the perfect vessel for a miracle. Think of it as a cosmic breath held, a moment when the universe stops to listen. These myths provided a framework for understanding the unexplainable. A sudden, perfect calm during a violent storm could be interpreted as the gods pausing their quarrel. A person recovering from a seemingly fatal illness might be said to have been granted an hour outside of time's decay. By attributing such events to a temporary suspension of reality's rules, our ancestors found order in chaos and meaning in mystery. This shared mythological bedrock makes the specific locations we will discover all the more powerful, for they are not just random spots on a map. They are the physical anchors for this profound and ancient hope, the places where the story was believed to literally touch the earth. Deep within a remote mountain range, cradled by peaks that touch the clouds, lies the Whispering Valley. For most of the year, it is a place of natural sound, filled with the calls of birds and the constant murmur of a stream cascading over smooth stones. But on the dawn of the winter solstice, a profound change occurs. As the sun's first light touches the highest ridges, every sound ceases. The birds stop singing mid-note. The wind dies completely, leaving the leaves of ancient trees hanging motionless. The stream's water appears to solidify, its flow suspended as if the entire valley is holding a single, collective breath. This is the hour of listening. According to the tales passed down through generations, this absolute silence is not an emptiness but a sacred space created for communication. It is believed that during this hour, the voices of the valley's original guardians, the ancient ones, can finally be heard. Their wisdom, accumulated over millennia, is said to be imparted to any person quiet enough, not just in body but in spirit, to receive it. The myth tells that the guardians established this pause not as a spectacle, but as a necessary ritual for guidance. It was a time to step outside the relentless rush of daily survival and connect with the deeper knowledge of the past. Intriguingly, this folklore finds a strange echo in the physical world. Archaeologists have discovered unusual, perfectly aligned stone circles within the valley, their placement suggesting a sophisticated understanding of celestial events. While we cannot know the exact nature of the rituals performed there, the alignment points strongly to the winter solstice, lending a tangible, mysterious weight to the legend. The Whispering Valley embodies a universal yearning to converse with those who came before us. It represents the idea that time must sometimes stop so that we can finally hear the whispers of ancestral wisdom that are normally drowned out by the noise of the present. This concept of sacred silence prepares us for a location where the myth manifests in a completely opposite and equally breathtaking way. Far from the silent mountains, a different kind of pause occurs on the surface of a high-altitude lake. Lake Serenity is known for its deep, placid blue waters, a mirror to the sky that gives no hint of the secret it holds. According to local lore, the lake was not always there. It was formed in a single, catastrophic night when a great cathedral, a place of immense spiritual significance, was swallowed by the earth and the waters rushed in to conceal it. The act was not one of destruction, but of divine protection, hiding the sacred structure from an approaching army. The cathedral was preserved in its watery tomb, waiting for the one day each year when it would be revealed. That day is the anniversary of its sinking. For exactly 1 hour as the sun reaches its zenith, a miracle unfolds. The opaque, blue water of the lake undergoes a stunning transformation, becoming as perfectly clear as air. The ruins of the cathedral are laid bare in astonishing detail, its stone arches and stained glass windows looking as if they were submerged only yesterday. Simultaneously, the surface of the lake freezes into a motionless, glassy plain, not with ice but with a supernatural stillness. This is the hour of reflection. Time stops not for the world above, but for the world below. The cathedral exists once more in its original glory, untouched by the centuries of water that have passed over it. Fishermen who have braved the lake on this day tell eerily consistent stories. They speak of seeing faint, shimmering processions of figures walking the submerged aisles. They report hearing the faint, echoing strains of ethereal hymns rising from the depths, music that seems to hang in the perfectly still air. This myth connects to a universal human fascination with sunken worlds, like the legendary Atlantis or the City of Wise. It represents a deep longing to believe that our golden ages are not lost forever, but merely waiting, preserved in a state of perfect pause for us to rediscover. The water itself is the key symbol. Water is the ultimate representation of time's relentless flow, of erosion and change. For that water to become static and transparent is a profound contradiction, a literal interruption of time's most fundamental action. It offers a fleeting glimpse of a past that is not gone, but simply waiting beneath the surface of our perception. What would we see if we could similarly still the flow of our own lives and look clearly into the depths of our history? This idea of a perfect, preserved moment leads us to a place where the pause is not about looking back, but about a profound and personal transformation. On the remote and wind-swept island of Aeolia, the wind is a constant, punishing force. It shapes the very landscape, carving the cliffs and bending the few hardy plants that manage to take root. Yet at the center of this island of perpetual motion, there stands a place of absolute stillness. The Chronos Grove is a perfect circle of ancient trees, but these are not living wood. They are stone petrified into eternal silence, their branches frozen in mid-sway as if the wind itself turned them to stone. This grove was the heart of a mysterious cult that worshipped Kronos, not as a gentle old man with a scythe, but as the raw, terrifying power of time itself. Their belief was that time was not a river, but a living force that could be appeased and on one night even bargained with. That night is the equinox, when day and night hang in perfect balance. At the precise stroke of midnight, as the world teeters between light and dark, the unthinkable happens. The howling winds that define Aeolia simply cease. A profound, impossible calm descends upon the grove. In this newfound silence, the most eerie phenomenon occurs. the shadows cast by the petrified trees under the equinox moon do not shift. They are fixed to the ground as if time itself has gripped the grove and refuses to let it go. This is the hour of decision. Ancient texts describe this suspended hour as a moment when fate becomes soft, like clay waiting for a sculptor's hand. It was believed that any choice made within the grove during this time carried an immense and irreversible weight, its consequences echoing far into the future. The petrified trees are the ultimate symbol of this myth. They are time made physical and stationary, a forest where the flow of centuries has been halted forever. This creates a powerful link to other mythological themes, like the crossroads, where a single decision determines a hero's entire path. The stark contrast between the grove's supernatural stillness and the island's usual chaotic gales is deliberate. It shows how myth uses extreme environmental shifts to mark a space as truly sacred, set apart from the ordinary world. The message is clear: when the universe itself holds its breath, your next action matters more than you can possibly know. What choice would you make if you knew it would be frozen in time, forever defining your story? This idea of a pivotal, frozen moment leads us to consider a different kind of suspension, one found not in a silent grove, but in the heart of a bustling, ancient city. The desert sun at its zenith is an instrument of absolute rule, commanding all life to seek shelter from its unforgiving gaze. Yet within a sea of sand, a different kind of command was once issued, not over subjects but over time itself. The Labyrinth of the Dreaming Emperor is a legend born of this desperate ambition. An emperor, terrified of the oblivion that awaited him, did not build a pyramid to house his corpse, but a vast, intricate labyrinth to trap his spirit. His plan was not to die, but to enter a state of perpetual slumber, waiting within a sanctuary where time's corrosive touch could not reach him. The entire structure, concealed by the ever-shifting dunes, was designed as a single, grand mechanism for this single annual miracle. On the hottest day of the year, when the sun's power is at its absolute peak, a paradox occurs. At the stroke of solar noon, the very force that represents relentless change and decay creates a pocket of perfect stillness. Inside the central chamber, the scorching air suddenly turns cool. Sundials, designed to track the sun's inexorable march, cast a shadow that does not move. For 1 hour, the emperor was said to awaken, not in body but in spirit, free to wander the halls of his impossible palace without the weight of centuries upon him. This myth touches on a universal and deeply human fear, the terror of mortality that drove so many historical figures, from the epic quest of Gilgamesh to the terracotta army of Qin Shi Huang. The labyrinth itself is a powerful symbol. It represents the immensely difficult, convoluted journey one must undertake to even approach the secret of cheating death. The path is not straight, filled with dead ends and confusion, mirroring the philosophical and spiritual struggle against an inevitable end. The choice of the sun's peak as the trigger is brilliant. It suggests that immortality is not found by avoiding power, but by harnessing it at its most extreme moment, turning the very agent of decay into the source of preservation. What would such an emperor dream about during his one free hour each year? Would he revisit his greatest triumphs or be tormented by the world that continued on without him? This solitary pursuit of eternal life stands in stark contrast to our next destination, where the suspension of time is not for a single ruler but an entire community. High in the Alpine mountains, where the air is thin and the silence profound, the rhythmic ticking of clocks is the village heartbeat. For generations, its people have been master horologists, crafting timepieces of such exquisite precision they seem to capture time itself within gears and springs. Their entire identity is built upon the mastery of measurement. the careful division of life into manageable segments. Yet their most cherished tradition is a celebration of letting that control go. It begins with the village's founding story, a tale of a clockmaker of such genius that he built a tower clock of unparalleled accuracy. Legend says its mechanism was so perfect that it once corrected a slight wobble in the Earth's rotation, realigning celestial time with terrestrial time. In gratitude for this service to the cosmos, the mountain spirits bestowed an annual gift. Now, on the first day of spring, as the great clock tower chimes for the very first time, a different kind of correction occurs. Instead of marking the next hour, the chime signals a pause. Every clock in the village, from the grand tower to the smallest pocket watch, stops dead. The rhythmic ticking that defines their lives is replaced by an immense quiet, but the miracle does not end with the machines. The villagers themselves, upon hearing that first chime, cease all movement. A woodcarver's mallet hangs in the air mid-strike. A child playing in the square is frozen mid-laugh, reaching for a bouncing ball. Conversations halt, with words left suspended between friends. This is the hour of stillness, and it is the village's greatest blessing. Far from a paralysis, this collective pause is an active practice of mindfulness. For 60 minutes, the entire community exists in a state of profound presence. They are not asleep or unconscious, but fully aware, appreciating the simple miracle of being without the pressure of what comes next. The myth presents a beautiful paradox, the ultimate masters of time choosing to abandon their craft for one sacred hour. It suggests that true wisdom lies not in the relentless tracking of time, but in the courage to occasionally step off its path. This communal ritual strengthens social bonds in a way that constant activity cannot. In that shared silence, without the distractions of work or conversation, the villagers experience a deep, wordless connection. They are reminded that their community is not just a collection of individuals busy with their own tasks, but a single organism breathing together in a moment outside of time. What would it be like if our own towns and cities observed such an hour? If the frantic pace of modern life simply ceased, allowing us to truly see the people around us, not as obstacles or competitors, but as fellow travelers in a paused moment. This Alpine village demonstrates that suspended time can be a tool for unity, a shared breath that renews the spirit of an entire community. Deep beneath a forest of ancient, gnarled trees lies a network of caves unlike any other. Their walls are not rough stone, but a tapestry of interlocking crystals that form a billion fractured mirrors. For most of the year, these surfaces do what all mirrors do. They capture the fleeting moment, a flicker of torchlight, the passing shape of a visitor. But on the night of the year's first full moon, their purpose transforms entirely. As the moonlight aligns with a hidden opening in the cavern roof, a soft, silver illumination floods the chambers, and the fundamental law of reflection is broken. Time stops for exactly 1 hour. In this suspended silence, your reflection does not move when you do. It holds perfectly still, presenting not your momentary appearance, but something far more profound. The ancient order known as the self-seers believed these crystal mirrors revealed a person's true essence, their core self stripped of all pretense and performance. Your hopes, your deepest fears, and the latent potential you carry within would all be laid bare in that unmoving image. This was their hour of truth. The philosophers would journey into the caverns for this annual ritual of meditation and divination. They sought not to see the future, but to see themselves with absolute clarity, to confront the static truth of their own soul. This myth taps into a universal folklore trope, the idea of a mirror that captures a soul rather than an image. The stopping of time is the essential condition for this miracle. Our normal lives are a constant stream of motion and reaction, a series of masks we put on and take off for the world. the mirror caverns propose that only when that stream is frozen can we finally see what lies beneath the current. It challenges our modern obsession with progress and forward motion, suggesting that the most important journey is not outward but inward, and that this journey requires a complete pause. What would you see if you stood before a mirror that showed not your age, your clothes, or your expression, but the unchanging story of who you are at your very core? This introspective power of frozen time finds a dramatic counterpoint in a place where the pause serves not quiet reflection, but a thunderous celestial judgment. A stone bridge arches gracefully over a deep and silent chasm, its surface worn smooth by centuries of wind and rare, furtive footsteps. This is not merely a path from one side to the other, but a monument to a love so powerful it bent the laws of reality. The legend begins with two young people from tribes locked in a bitter, generations-old feud. Their world offered no space for their affection, no daylight for their meetings. Their only sanctuary was the bridge itself, where they would steal away at the stroke of midnight on one specific night each year. On one such meeting, as they whispered their dreams into the darkness, a miracle was granted. The universe, moved by the purity of their devotion, paused the flow of time itself. For 1 extra hour, the moon hung motionless in the sky, and the world around the bridge fell into a perfect, protective stillness. They were given a gift beyond discovery, an hour of eternity to call their own. It is said that on the anniversary of that night, the bridge still exists within that same timeless bubble. For 60 minutes, the chasm is filled not with wind, but with the lingering echoes of their whispered promises, a soft symphony of vows that were never broken. This myth elevates a simple stone structure into a sacred space, much like the story of Romeo and Juliet, where love defiantly creates its own realm, separate from the conflicts of the world. The suspension of time here is the ultimate metaphor for love's own nature, suggesting that true connection exists outside the petty schedules and calendars that govern our lives. It is a force that can, even if only for a moment, make an hour last forever. This profound emotional need to immortalize a feeling leads us to a location where the paused hour serves a far more public and urgent purpose. The heat of a volcanic forge is the very definition of relentless energy, a place where the planet's raw power is constantly at work. Yet in one such fiery realm, legend speaks of an annual silence that defies this nature. The Forge of the Starsmith was said to be built within the heart of an active crater, a workshop where a celestial artisan crafted the very stuff of stars. This being was not a god of destruction, but a creator, hammering out new constellations on an anvil of cooled magma. The myth tells us that once each year, when a specific configuration of stars aligns perfectly overhead, the impossible happens. The constant rumble of the earth ceases. The bubbling pools of lava solidify into a glossy, obsidian-like skin. The plumes of smoke and steam dissipate, leaving the air unnervingly clear. For 1 hour, the violent, creative chaos of the forge is replaced by a profound and absolute stillness. This was understood not as a breakdown, but as a sacred intermission. It was the Starsmith's hour of contemplation, a time for the master artisan to step back and review the grand cosmic designs before the work of creation resumed. This idea resonates with creation myths from across the globe, where the universe is not made in one continuous burst, but in deliberate stages with pauses for assessment and adjustment. The Forge's temporary silence suggests a breathtaking concept, that even the fundamental forces that build reality require moments of reflection. It implies that creation itself is a thoughtful process, not a mindless explosion. What new star might be conceived in such a moment of quiet evaluation? This myth elevates the suspension of time to a cosmic scale, framing it as a necessary part of the universe's very maintenance. From this grand perspective of celestial creation, we now turn to a myth that is intimately connected to the soil and the simple, vital need for a good harvest. A field of flowers in full bloom is a portrait of life's most beautiful contradiction, a celebration that is already a farewell. In the fertile river deltas where this legend takes root, one particular species defies even this brief schedule. Its blossoms open at dawn and are gone by dusk, a spectacle of beauty so fleeting it seems almost cruel. But the local myth speaks of a divine intervention, a moment of reprieve from this merciless cycle. At the very peak of the bloom, when the field is a riot of color and fragrance, a miracle occurs. For one perfect hour, time stops. The flowers cease their slow arc toward the ground. Bees, caught in their diligent work, hang motionless in the air like jewels. Most strikingly, the scent of the blossoms intensifies, becoming a potent, static cloud that does not fade or drift on the breeze. This is the hour of perfection, a gift from a goddess of spring who understood the human heart's ache in the face of such transient beauty. She offered a temporary victory over decay, a chance to stand in a moment of absolute splendor and know it will not slip away, not yet. This profound longing to preserve a perfect moment finds a powerful echo in the Japanese concept of mono no aware, the gentle sadness or pathos of things. It is the awareness of impermanence, the bittersweet feeling that arises from watching cherry blossoms fall, knowing their beauty is heightened by its very brevity. The myth of the frozen blossoms is a direct response to this feeling. It does not deny the reality of decay, but it offers a sacred pause, a breath held in the relentless progression from bloom to wilt. In that static hour, entropy itself is held at bay. The natural world's constant slide toward disorder is momentarily interrupted, allowing a pure appreciation of life at its peak, untouched by the shadow of its end. How many of us have wished for such a power to freeze a perfect sunset, a child's laughter, or a moment of peace, preserving it from the flow that will inevitably carry it away? These stories reveal a deep desire to reconcile the eternal truths we sense with the ephemeral beauty we experience, a contrast that becomes even starker in our next destination. A library's true magic is not in the stories it holds, but in the ones it might have contained. Tucked away in the forgotten quarter of a great city, a legend persists of a library with no name, a place that houses not written works but their ghosts. Its collection consists entirely of unread books, volumes that contain every story that was never written, every tale lost to a writer's doubt, a burned manuscript, or a life cut short. The library is a monument to potentiality, a silent archive of what could have been. And once a year, on the anniversary of its mythical founding at the hour of dusk, time stops within its walls to give these lost narratives a voice. As the last light fades outside, the library is plunged into a deep blue twilight. Then the impossible happens. The blank pages of the unread books begin to glow with a soft, internal light. In the perfect, breathless silence of the suspended hour, the untold stories flicker into existence. They do not appear as words on a page, but as shimmering images and whispers that hang in the air, brief, vivid phantoms of plots and characters that never found a home in our world. This miracle is attributed to a patron spirit of lost narratives, a guardian who preserves these possibilities in a state outside of time's erosion, saving them from total oblivion. This myth speaks directly to a universal creative anxiety, the fear that a good idea will be lost forever before it can be realized. It proposes a beautiful and comforting thought, that a story has a kind of life of its own, independent of its publication. The essence of a tale, its soul, exists in a realm of pure potential, waiting for its moment to be born. The annual pause is that moment, For 1 hour, the barrier between the possible and the actual dissolves. You could witness the epic a poet might have written had they not fallen in love and chosen a quieter life. You might hear the first chapter of a novel lost in a shipwreck, or see the characters from a story an inventor dreamed of but forgot upon waking. This is a myth about the road not taken, but on a grand, collective scale. It suggests that history is not just the timeline of events that occurred, but also the shadow timeline of all that was nearly achieved. The library gives form to our nagging sense of what might have been, validating the immense value of ideas that never came to fruition. In that silent hour, time stops not to preserve the past, but to honor the futures that never were, reminding us that every unwritten book is a universe that still awaits its dawn. This exploration of pure potential leads us to a place where the stopped hour serves a far more immediate and urgent human need. The colossal stone arches of the amphitheater stand broken against the sky, a skeleton of its former glory. Yet, on the anniversary of its greatest contest, a ghostly energy returns to the ruins. The legend tells of two champions, so perfectly matched in skill and spirit that their final bout could not reach a conclusion. Blow for blow, parry for parry, they fought until the sun began to set, and still neither could gain an advantage. In that sublime moment of absolute equality, the gods themselves intervened, not to choose a winner, but to honor the perfection of the struggle. They froze the combatants in their final, dynamic poses, a tribute to a mastery so complete it existed outside the need for victory or defeat. Now, every year, the spectral echoes of those warriors materialize upon the dusty arena floor. For 1 hour, they hold their timeless standoff, a silent, glowing tableau of ultimate prowess. The air around them chills noticeably, and if you listen closely, carried on a wind that does not stir the dust, you can hear the faint, roaring approval of the vanished crowd, their cheers echoing across centuries. This is the arena of the timeless champions, and it captures a profound human aspiration, the desire for a perfect moment to be recognized as eternal. We see this in our own world when we speak of a timeless classic in art, music, or sport, a performance so flawless it feels untethered from its historical context. The frozen warriors are not trapped in a loop of failure, but celebrated in a state of perpetual excellence. Their struggle is no longer about winning, but about the pure, beautiful expression of skill itself. The myth suggests that true greatness is not defined by an outcome, but by the quality of the effort, a peak of human achievement so high that even time must stop to acknowledge it. This monumental celebration of public glory finds its quiet counterpart in a place where the sacred hour is meant for a single, solitary witness. High on a wind-scoured cliff, where seabirds circle in a perpetual dance with the updrafts, stands a monastery built of stone the color of the sky before a storm. Its most defining feature is a single, immense bell housed in an open tower, a bell that has remained silent for centuries, never once struck by a human hand. The monks who inhabit this austere place believe it was forged for a single, ultimate purpose, to ring only at the moment of cosmic dissolution, signaling the end of time itself. Yet, in their wisdom, the ancients who crafted it built in a compromise, a small mercy for the mortal world. On the night of the year's highest tide, when the ocean's pull is at its most powerful, the bell answers a different call. It does not ring aloud, but instead it creates a perfect sphere of silence. For 1 hour, an absolute hush falls upon the monastery grounds. The ever-present wind is muted. The cries of the gulls vanish. Even the sound of your own heartbeat seems to be absorbed into this immense quiet. This is the hour of the unstruck sound. During this sacred pause, the monks engage in their deepest meditation. They seek not to empty the mind, but to fill it with a presence so complete that the linear march of thought, of past and future, simply stops. They describe achieving a state of timeless awareness, where the self dissolves into a unified field of pure being. This myth beautifully intertwines mystical tradition with a principle from physics, the concept of a standing wave. Imagine a note held in perfect, eternal resonance, cancelling out all other vibrations. The silent bell creates a metaphysical standing wave, a zone of such perfect stability that the noise of existence, including the tick-tock of seconds, is neutralized. The silence is not an emptiness but a profound fullness. It is the sound of potential, the hum of the universe waiting to be born. This challenges our usual perception of stopped time as a void. Here it is the opposite, a state of hyper-reality where one is fully immersed in the eternal now. The monks use this annual gift not as an escape from time, but as a masterclass in navigating it. By experiencing an hour outside of sequence, they learn to carry that timeless quality into their daily lives, meeting each moment with a fresh, unburdened perspective. This spiritual interpretation reveals that these anomalies are not just about pausing the clock, but about transforming our relationship with it entirely. Such a profound, peaceful encounter with the eternal prepares us for a location where the suspended hour carries a far more unsettling energy. The stones of this abandoned quarry do not simply absorb the rain, they weep. Deep within its man-made canyon, water perpetually seeps from the raw rock faces, a slow, mournful process that has earned it the name, the Quarry of the Weeping Stones. But this is not a natural phenomenon. According to the Somma local legend, the stones cut from this very pit were used to construct a prison for a benevolent nature spirit, a guardian of the surrounding forest. The spirit was not malevolent, but its freedom was deemed inconvenient for the expansion of a nearby settlement. The quarry, in its own slow, geological way, remembers this act of betrayal. On the anniversary of the imprisonment, the weeping intensifies from a seep to a steady flow, and then, for 1 hour, time stops. The water droplets do not fall. They hang suspended in the air like countless frozen tears. The very air grows thick and heavy, saturated with a palpable sense of regret that has had no outlet for centuries. This is not a sacred pause for reflection or a gift of beauty. It is a temporal monument to a profound moral failure. The myth personifies the landscape, granting it a conscience. The quarry's grief is so immense that it momentarily halts the forward march of causality itself, as if the universe must pause to acknowledge the weight of the wrong committed there. This story serves as a powerful environmental allegory, a warning against the exploitation of nature without understanding or respect. The stopped hour is nature's silent, powerful protest, a dramatic symbol of a debt that remains unpaid. It introduces a crucial moral dimension to our journey, reminding us that these temporal anomalies are not always benevolent. Sometimes they are a judgment, a frozen moment of collective guilt that demands atonement. This darker, more solemn theme of a cosmic reckoning prepares us for a myth that involves not just earthly regret, but a direct bargain with the heavens themselves. The crumbling dome of the observatory offers a fractured view of the sky, a testament to an ambition that reached beyond the stars themselves. Here, the story is not of gods granting a pause, but of mortals demanding one. A group of ancient astronomers mapping the heavens with an obsessive precision calculated an event of breathtaking rarity, a cosmic alignment that would not repeat for 1,000 years. The moment was too fleeting, the opportunity for understanding too vast to be contained within a single night. Driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge, they devised a ritual of immense complexity, a grand appeal to the logic of the universe itself. Legend says they did not beg for a gift, but presented an argument so elegant it convinced the celestial mechanics to pause. On the anniversary of that desperate, brilliant night, time stops within the observatory's ruins for exactly 1 hour. The stars and planets freeze in their positions, not as a static picture, but as a living chart held open for prolonged study. This is time suspended as a trophy of the intellect, a hard-won concession from a seemingly indifferent cosmos. The myth frames knowledge not as a revelation, but as something wrestled from the grip of eternity through sheer will and ingenuity. It reflects a profound shift in the human relationship with the divine, where awe is paired with a daring desire to negotiate. What would you ask the universe if you could hold it still for just a little longer? This pursuit of capturing the sublime through human effort finds a parallel in a place where the paused hour is dedicated not to calculation, but to pure creation. The desire to capture a perfect moment of light is an ancient artistic obsession. Within the painter's palette canyon, that desire became a legend. The canyon walls are a natural masterpiece, striped with mineral deposits in shades of crimson, ochre, and deep violet, a geological canvas that seems to await only the right illumination. The story tells of a painter who wandered into this canyon, dissatisfied with every pigment on her own palette, desperate to capture the transcendent glow of the solstice sunset. She did not simply paint, she prayed, asking the sun itself to pause its descent for just a little longer to grant her a glimpse of perfection, and according to the myth, her plea was answered. On the summer solstice, as the sun kisses the canyon rim, an extraordinary transformation occurs. The light does not fade, it solidifies, bathing the multicolored cliffs in an eternal, unchanging golden hue. For one sacred hour, the shifting shadows that define the passage of time are banished, and the canyon exists in a state of absolute visual harmony. This is not a trick of the eye, but a suspension of a fundamental law. Artists who pilgrimage to the canyon for this event speak of a profound creative awakening. In that static, perfect light, freed from the frantic race against the sunset, inspiration flows unbidden. The myth suggests that true artistic mastery requires a liberation from temporal pressure. The relentless tick of the clock, the awareness of a deadline, these are the enemies of the muse. The canyon offers a sanctuary where the ideal can be studied, not as a fleeting target, but as a permanent reality. It equates the stopping of time with the achievement of perfect beauty, an ideal that transcends any single painting or sculpture. In this hour, the universe itself becomes the ultimate artist, holding its composition in a state of flawless balance. This concept resonates with any creative person who has ever wished for more time, not to finish a project, but to truly live within its ideal form. What masterpiece might be born from a mind unshackled from the fear of time running out? The canyon's vibrant, frozen light prepares us for a journey into its absolute opposite, a place where the paused hour is defined not by radiant color, but by an all-consuming darkness. A deep well in the heart of a petrified forest holds a silence more profound than the surrounding stone trees. This is the well of future echoes, a place where the boundary between what is and what might be grows dangerously thin. On the night of a lunar eclipse, as the Earth's shadow consumes the moon, a different kind of shadow falls upon the well. Time stops for 1 hour, and the dark, still water within ceases to be a simple reflector. It becomes a window, but one that looks forward, not back. The images that shimmer to life on its surface are not of the present moment, but are cryptic glimpses of events yet to unfold. You might see a single falling leaf from a tree that has not yet been planted, or a key turning in a lock you have never seen. The visions are never straightforward narratives. They are symbolic puzzles, reflections of a future that is still soft and malleable, its final shape not yet fixed by the choices of the present. This is the core of the myth's great paradox. How can one observe a time frame that does not yet exist during a present moment that is itself frozen? The well suggests that time is not a single, unbreakable thread, but a tapestry of infinite possibilities. The suspended hour acts as a puncture in the linear fabric, allowing potential futures to leak through, not as certainty, but as haunting suggestions. This directly confronts the ancient philosophical struggle between predestination and free will. Are we merely watching a preview of a film that has already been edited, or are we being shown the raw footage, allowing us the power to change the final cut? The well does not answer this question. It merely presents the dilemma in its most visceral form. This foray into prophecy reveals a new function of stopped time, not as a sanctuary or a judgment, but as a conduit. It frames these temporal anomalies as windows into other dimensions of time itself, a concept that challenges our most basic assumptions about cause and effect. If a single well can offer a view of what is to come, what other temporal vistas might be accessible from a different kind of puncture in reality's skin? Ahead, the cracking thunder of a calving glacier defines the rhythm of the valley. But the icefall of the sleeping giant is more than a river of ice. It is the slumbering body of a world-shaping titan. The local people do not hear the roar of falling ice as a threat, but as the deep, rumbling breaths of a dormant creator. Their most sacred legend speaks of the longest night of the year, when the darkness is absolute and the cold is profound. At the peak of this annual silence, the giant's breath changes. The constant groaning and cracking of the icefall ceases completely. The torrent of meltwater at the glacier's base halts in its path, its surface freezing into a sheet of perfect, motionless glass. For 1 hour, the entire landscape is gripped by a stillness so deep it feels like the world has been unplugged. This is not a time of fear, but of cosmic nostalgia. It is believed that in this suspended hour, the sleeping giant dreams. He does not dream of the future, but of the world's creation, revisiting the moment when mountains were pushed up from the plains and valleys were carved by his hand. The myth uses the glacier's immense, slow power as a perfect metaphor for geological time, a scale so vast it is almost impossible for us to comprehend. The annual 1-hour pause is a fleeting connection to an even more ancient, primordial past, a time before time as we know it began. This story is powerfully grounded in the physical reality of the ice. You can stand before the silent, blue-white cliff and feel the truth of the legend in the very air. It makes the abstract concept of frozen time immediate and tangible, a force as real as the ice under your feet. What memories would a mountain have if it could dream? This grounding in an elemental, earthly force leads us to a myth centered on a far more delicate and invisible element, where the pause is felt not in ice but in the air itself. The peak of this mountain is a place of perpetual motion, a realm where the wind screams with a voice that never tires. It is a sound so constant it becomes a part of the rock itself, a force that has shaped the summit into a blade of stone. Yet there is one day when the screaming stops. According to the legend, the mountain is not hollow, but a prison. Trapped within its core is a great eagle of primordial power, a being born from the first winds that ever swept across the world. Its immense wings beat against its stone cage in a never-ending struggle for freedom, and it is this frantic motion that breathes life into the mountain's eternal gale. The wind is not merely weather, it is the eagle's furious heartbeat. But on the anniversary of its capture, a truce is forced upon the mountain. The eagle, exhausted by its millennia of struggle, rests for a single sacred hour. In that moment, the wind dies. The sudden silence is so absolute it feels like a physical pressure on the ears. This is the summit of the captured wind, and for 60 minutes, time stops. The absence of sound becomes a presence in itself, a profound quiet that allows the mountain and the imprisoned creature within it to simply exist without conflict. This myth gives a soul to a violent natural phenomenon, transforming a meteorological fact into an epic narrative of captivity and resilience. The stopped hour is not a gift from the gods, but a hard-won respite earned through eternal effort. It speaks to the universal experience of struggle, suggesting that even in the most relentless battles, there are moments of reprieve. The silence is a testament to the cost of that freedom, a reminder of the immense energy required to fight forever. What would it be like to stand on that summit in that perfect calm, to feel the stillness after a lifetime of roaring motion? This story of temporary release from a perpetual state finds a joyful inversion in our next destination, where the suspended hour is not born from exhaustion, but from pure communal celebration. In a city famed for its undying light, the Festival of the Static Flame transforms a historical siege into a living, breathing ritual. The legend recounts a desperate night when the city's sacred fire, its symbolic heart, was the last defense against a relentless enemy. As the fuel ran out and hope dwindled, a miracle occurred. For one impossible hour, the flame continued to burn brightly, its shape holding perfectly still without consuming a single drop of oil, granting the defenders the crucial time needed for rescue to arrive. That single hour of defiance became the city's founding myth, a story so powerful it demanded annual reenactment. Now, every year on the anniversary of that night, the entire city square falls into a profound hush. The great flame in the central brazier ceases its eternal dance. It becomes a sculpture of living light, a motionless orange tongue against the dark. And in that suspended hour, the people of the city join the miracle. They do not cheer or pray aloud. Instead, they stand in the square, perfectly still, their own bodies mirroring the static flame. It is a communal act of remembrance so complete that it becomes a physical participation in the legend itself. This is not merely watching history, it is embodying it. The frozen flame is no longer just a symbol of resilience. It is a direct conduit to the courage of their ancestors. By standing motionless together, the citizens collectively access that moment of unwavering defiance, reinforcing their shared identity and strength. This powerful social ritual demonstrates how a temporal anomaly can be woven into the very fabric of a community, using the idea of stopped time to forge an unbreakable bond across generations. It raises a poignant question: what collective memory would your own community choose to physically reenact, to hold perfectly still for 1 hour each year? This profound expression of unity through frozen time finds its counterpoint in a myth that is deeply, intensely personal. The smallest of these sacred spaces requires no grand cathedrals or frozen waterfalls, only a single human heart. Tucked into a lonely hillside is the Hermit's Cave of 1,000 Heartbeats, an opening so narrow it feels less like a room and more like an embrace of stone. Here, the legend is not about gods or cosmic events, but about the ultimate act of personal discipline. An ascetic, weary of the sun's unreliable arc and the water clock's constant drip, decided to find a more fundamental measure. He chose the rhythm of his own life, the steady drumbeat within his chest. Through years of profound meditation, he sought to master this internal clock, to slow the frantic pace of existence to a single, meaningful pulse. His ultimate achievement was said to occur on one day each year. For 1 hour, his heart would beat only once. In that expansive silence between pulses, time, as an external force, lost all meaning. A personal universe of perfect stillness bloomed around him, a pocket of eternity carved out by sheer will. This myth internalizes the entire concept we have been exploring. The control of time is no longer a gift from the heavens or a property of a magical location, but but a psychological and spiritual accomplishment. It aligns with mystical traditions across the world, from Buddhist monks who perceive hours as moments in deep samadhi, to Christian hermits who spoke of visions lasting lifetimes within a single prayer. The cave is merely a facilitator, a quiet vessel for an inward journey. For those who seek out the cave on the appointed day, the experience is described not as the world stopping, but as the self expanding to fill the hour so completely that its boundaries dissolve. You would not see a suspended droplet of water, but you might feel a single thought unfold with the richness of 1,000. This is stopped time as a state of heightened consciousness, where a minute can contain a lifetime of reflection. It presents a powerful counterpoint to the environmental spectacles, suggesting that the most profound temporal anomalies are not witnessed with the eyes, but felt within the soul. If time can be halted by mastering one's own internal rhythm, what other realities might be unlocked by a unified human consciousness? A circle of ancient, weathered stones stands on a windswept plain, a silent parliament from a forgotten age. This is the council ring of the United Tribes, and its legend is not one of magic or monsters, but of a political miracle. The story tells of a bitter war between clans that had raged for generations, a cycle of revenge that seemed as inevitable as the setting sun. When the chieftains finally agreed to meet, their negotiations were so fraught that every word was a potential spark. As dusk approached without a resolution, tensions threatened to boil over into renewed violence. It was then, the myth says, that the sun itself intervened. Instead of dipping below the horizon, it halted its descent, holding the land in a perpetual, golden afternoon for exactly 1 hour. Freed from the looming threat of darkness, the leaders found the clarity they needed. In that extended moment of light, they saw not enemies but future allies, and they forged a peace that would last for centuries. Now, every year at solar noon on the anniversary of that day, time is said to stop once more within the ring. The shadows cast by the standing stones freeze in place, and a profound, symbolic stillness descends. This is not a pause for personal reflection, but a communal reaffirmation of an ideal. The myth brilliantly uses the stopped hour as a metaphor for the peace treaty itself. A good agreement is meant to be timeless, to exist outside the petty squabbles and shifting loyalties of the years that follow. It represents a moment of perfect understanding so powerful it must be lifted out of the normal flow of history and preserved. The stone circle is the perfect anchor for this belief. Its unbroken shape has always symbolized eternity, a wheel with no beginning and no end. By placing the temporal anomaly within this eternal symbol, the story fuses the concept of a frozen moment with the concept of a lasting covenant. This demonstrates a fascinating function of these myths. They can become the sacred bedrock for entire social and political structures. The annual ritual of visiting the ring during the suspended hour is not just a remembrance, it is an active participation in the founding principle of the community. It answers a deep human need for our most hard-won achievements to be more than just historical footnotes, to possess a living, breathing quality that can be revisited. What conflict in our own world would benefit from such a timeless hour of clarity? This powerful vision of unity through frozen time shifts our gaze from the earthly plane to the celestial sphere, where the next anomaly is governed by a far more mysterious and precise clock. A massive, hollow geode stands on a remote coastline, its exterior a rough, unremarkable stone dome, but inside it holds a universe. The cavity is lined with millions of pristine crystals, a miniature night sky turned inward. For ancient mariners who knew of its location, this was not merely a geological wonder, it was their most sacred tool. Their legend speaks of the clearest night of the year, when not a single cloud mars the velvet blackness above. At the peak of this perfect visibility, a miracle occurs within the geode. the reflections of the stars on the countless crystal facets cease their subtle twinkling. They lock into position, becoming a fixed, brilliant map of the heavens that remains perfectly still for exactly 1 hour. This was the hour of the fixed stars, a divine gift from the gods of the sea and sky. For sailors navigating by the stars, this was a matter of life and death. The real night sky is a wheel in constant, slow motion. Plotting a precise course requires accounting for this movement, a difficult task on a shifting deck in the open ocean. But the Geode's frozen map offered a moment of absolute certainty. During that sacred hour, the celestial guideposts were nailed in place. A navigator could take his time, comparing the static crystal sky to the one above, making calculations with an accuracy that was otherwise impossible. This myth demonstrates a profoundly practical application of suspended time. It was not about philosophical reflection or emotional catharsis, but about survival and discovery. The story sanctifies a useful, if imagined, natural phenomenon, turning a clever observational technique into a divine intervention. The geode itself functions as a natural planetarium, and the added element of temporal stasis guarantees the map's infallibility. It reminds us that these stories were often rooted in the urgent needs of daily life, providing both explanation and comfort in a dangerous and unpredictable world. The wonder of the stars was harnessed for the pragmatic art of finding one's way home, a beautiful fusion of cosmic awe and earthly necessity. This combination of utility and mystery finds a powerful echo in our next destination, where the paused hour serves not to guide travelers across the sea, but to heal the very land they walk upon. The fear of an empty stomach is one of humanity's oldest and most primal terrors. In the heart of a land blessed with rich, black soil, that fear gave birth to a profound legend of salvation. The Granary of the ever-full harvest stands not as a monument to kings, but as a testament to survival itself. The story begins in a time of desperation, when a relentless drought threatened to turn the fertile plains to dust. The harvest was meager, the stores nearly depleted, and the specter of famine loomed over every family. In their deepest hour of need, the people turned to the earth goddess, the very spirit of the soil they cultivated. They did not ask for rain, but for a miracle that would defy the cruel arithmetic of scarcity. On the final day of the harvest, as the last sheaf of grain was brought into the communal granary, the goddess answered. For one sacred hour, time stopped, the wind died, the sun hung motionless in the sky, and within the granary, an impossible multiplication occurred. The small pile of grain began to replenish itself, not by growing, but by simply being more, as if each kernel was remembering all the kernels that could have been. When the hour ended and time resumed its flow, the granary was filled to the rafters, averting the disaster. This was the hour of providence, a direct intervention that suspended the natural law of depletion. Now, the memory of that miracle is kept alive in an annual festival. As the community celebrates the harvest, a single, symbolic sheaf of grain is carried to the granary. At the precise moment it is placed inside, a hush falls over the crowd. For the next 60 minutes, all work ceases. The festival continues, but in a state of suspended animation, a living reenactment of that original pause. This is not a time of anxiety, but of profound gratitude. The myth directly links the concept of frozen time to the most basic human need, the assurance of food. It transforms a temporal anomaly from a philosophical curiosity into a matter of life and death. The granary becomes a symbol of hope, a promise that the cycle of want can be broken, if only for a moment, by a benevolent force. This story reveals a crucial truth about these myths. They are not just about wonder, they are about solutions. When faced with an insurmountable problem like famine, the human imagination reaches for the ultimate tool, a pause button on reality itself, creating a space where the rules of scarcity no longer apply. This deep connection to survival through preservation leads us to a final, hauntingly beautiful myth, one that seeks to preserve not grain, but memory itself. A profound silence defines the royal tomb complex, a stillness meant to last for eternity. But one crypt holds a sound that refuses to fade. The legend speaks of the first king interred here, a ruler who with his final ounce of strength delivered a prophecy that would shape the destiny of his lineage. As his life slipped away, the words left his lips, and instead of dissipating into the stale air of the burial chamber, they were caught. Time itself froze around that utterance, preserving the king's last breath and the precise, resonant tone of his voice. Now, each year on the anniversary of that fateful moment, the tomb participates in a sacred replay. For exactly 1 hour, the flow of centuries halts. The dust motes hang motionless in the shafts of light that pierce the ventilation shafts, and in that perfect, suspended silence, the prophecy is spoken once more. It is not an echo in the ordinary sense, which grows weaker with each repetition. This is the original event, perfectly looped, a temporal recording of unparalleled clarity. The myth addresses a powerful human anxiety, the fear that our most important messages will be lost or distorted after we are gone. We see this in our own world with the immense weight placed on deathbed confessions or final advice from a loved one. The tomb's magic responds to this fear in the most direct way possible. It creates a sanctuary where a voice is granted immortality, ensuring that the final, crucial thought of a leader is never subject to the misinterpretations of historians or the corruption of folklore. This stopped hour acts as the ultimate archival system, a guarantee of authenticity across the generations. It suggests that some words are so vital they must be lifted out of time entirely, made available for every future era to hear exactly as they were intended. What final message would you wish to preserve with such impossible fidelity? This deep need to secure a legacy through the human voice leads us to a place where the paused hour serves a far more intimate and personal purpose. A waterfall's roar is the sound of time itself in motion, a relentless, thunderous flow that carves canyons and defines landscapes. But one waterfall holds a secret that defies this very nature. The waterfall of the Hanging Veil does not simply cascade, it breathes. For 364 days a year, it is a magnificent, powerful curtain of white water, plunging into a misty pool below. Then, on the dawn of the autumn equinox, a miracle unfolds. As the first direct rays of the sun strike the crest of the falls, the thunder ceases. The endless torrent of water does not slow or thin, it simply stops. The water solidifies in mid-air, transforming into a solid, shimmering curtain of captured motion, a sculpture of liquid light. The air around it remains warm, confirming this is no ordinary freeze, but a supernatural suspension. This is the hour of the Hanging Veil. Local tradition explains this phenomenon not as a physical law broken, but as a conscious act by the waterfall's own spirit. The spirit, which normally expresses itself through the constant, joyful rush of water, pauses its endless dance for one sacred hour. It is said that during this pause, the spirit peers through the now still veil of water, gazing into our world with a clarity that the motion of its own form usually obscures. This is a moment when the boundary between the animate spirit world and the inanimate physical world grows thin and transparent. The hanging water becomes a literal window, a two-way mirror between realities. This is a core tenet of animism, one of humanity's oldest belief systems, which sees a living soul within rivers, stones, and trees. The myth gives a face and an intention to the awesome power of nature, making it relatable. We can understand the desire to pause and look closely, a desire we ourselves feel when confronted with something beautiful or mysterious. The visual impact of this legend is its greatest power. The concept of stop time is abstract, a difficult idea to grasp, but to see a waterfall, the very symbol of unstoppable force, hanging motionless against the sky, makes the intangible vividly, breathtakingly real. It transforms a philosophical concept into a visceral experience. This story, like so many others we have explored, almost certainly grew from a direct, awe-inspiring observation. Perhaps ancient witnesses saw a rare optical illusion where the light and mist created a perfect, frozen moment in their perception. Or perhaps they simply felt the profound peace that can fall upon a wild place, a sudden silence so deep it felt as if the universe had paused to listen. The myth gives that feeling a name and a time, creating order from a wondrous mystery. It reminds us that our oldest stories are not mere fantasies, but profound attempts to explain the moments that truly stagger the senses, the events that make us feel small yet deeply connected to the world around us. This beautiful, suspended curtain of water serves as the perfect prelude to our final destination, a place where all the threads of our journey converge into one ultimate mystery. This final place exists everywhere and nowhere at once. The nexus of the 26 paths is the silent, central chamber where all the other miracles resonate in unison. It is a metaphysical crossroads, a point of convergence that becomes real only during that one sacred hour when the whispering valley falls silent, the sunken cathedral clears, and the petrified trees hold their shadows fast. While the other 25 anomalies are anchored to specific stones and waters, the Nexus is a phenomenon of pure connection. It has no latitude or longitude, no map can lead you to it, for it is not a location you can visit, but a state of awareness you might enter. Think of it as a grand symphony. Each of the 25 places is an instrument, playing its own unique, solitary note of defiance against the flow of time. For 51 weeks of the year, these instruments are silent or play out of sequence, but for 1 hour they all sound together, their individual pauses creating a single, harmonious chord that vibrates through the fabric of reality itself. The Nexus is the experience of that chord. It is the awareness that these seemingly isolated wonders are, in fact, part of a single, intricate design. This meta-myth answers the lingering question of why so many cultures, separated by vast oceans and millennia, would dream of the exact same miracle. It suggests they were not inventing fantasies, but perhaps tuning into a deeper, hidden rhythm of the world, a fundamental pulse that occasionally skips a beat. To perceive the Nexus requires no pilgrimage to a distant land, but a profound inward journey. It is said that during the Nexus hour, a person who has deeply internalized the stories of all the other places can achieve a state of perfect synchronicity. By meditating on the frozen waterfall, the silent bell, and the timeless champions all at once, the seeker's consciousness can align with the collective pause. In that moment, they might feel a sudden, profound stillness that is both personal and universal, a sense of being perfectly in phase with a cosmic pattern. This is the ultimate purpose of the myth. It transforms the idea of stopped time from a series of local curiosities into a unified field of potential. The Nexus implies that these hours are not glitches in reality, but essential features like breathing holes in the ice of a frozen lake, allowing the universe to maintain its balance. What would it feel like to stand at the center of that silence, to be the one point of stillness in a world of 25 simultaneous pauses? The answer may be the greatest mystery of all, a secret whispered not in a valley, but in the hidden connections between all things. Beneath their unique settings and stories, these 26 myths share a hidden architecture. The consistency of the 1 hour duration is the first and most telling clue. It is not a day which would feel like a paralysis, nor a minute which would be too fleeting for any meaningful transformation. 1 hour is a profoundly human scale, a manageable eternity. It is the length of a deep conversation, a solemn ceremony, or a quiet walk. This suggests a universal cognitive limit, the maximum span for which our minds can truly conceive of a world without forward motion, a perfect pocket of stillness we can hold in our imagination. The triggers for these pauses are equally revealing. They are almost never random. Celestial events like solstices, equinoxes, and eclipses serve as the most common clockwork. This ties the miracle directly to the grand, predictable cycles of the cosmos, lending it an air of natural law rather than mere whim. Historical anniversaries form another trigger, freezing a moment of profound importance, a peace treaty signed, a city saved, a love declared, and allowing a community to step back into that foundational energy each year. And then there are the moments of peak natural intensity, the highest tide, the most vibrant bloom, the most punishing heat. Here, the myth suggests that beauty or power, when pushed to its absolute extreme, can momentarily fracture the ordinary flow of things. Why do these pauses occur? The purposes are as varied as human need itself. Some are for divine communication, creating a silent channel for wisdom from beyond. Others are for moral judgment, forcing a landscape to weep in suspended regret. Many are for personal reflection, offering a mirror to the soul or a crossroads for a fateful decision. Communal pauses bond entire villages or cities in shared, timeless remembrance, and perhaps most poignant are the pauses for pure preservation, the attempt to hold a perfect blossom or a final prophecy in a state of grace, safe from decay. Ultimately, these stories are not about escaping time, but about redeeming it. They are cultural mechanisms for marking what truly matters. A traumatic event is processed by being lifted out of history's chaotic stream and examined in a sacred, static space. A moment of supreme beauty is celebrated not just as a passing pleasure, but as a timeless ideal. The relentless tick-tock of survival is interrupted so that a community can remember its shared identity, or an individual can confront their true purpose. By granting a specific location this annual miracle, our ancestors were performing a kind of magic. They were taking the abstract, overwhelming concept of eternity and planting it in the soil under their feet. They were making the intangible tangible, transforming a random patch of earth into a portal to the eternal. In doing so, they answered a deep, persistent longing to believe that our most significant moments are not lost to the river of time, but are waiting for us, preserved, ready to be revisited whenever we need their wisdom or their wonder. Our journey through these 26 mythical places reminds us that time is far more than a simple measurement. It is a canvas for our deepest stories, our greatest fears, and our most profound aspirations. These legends of suspended hours offer us a timeless gift, a chance to ponder the moments we would wish to freeze. What wisdom would we seek in the perfect silence of the Whispering Valley? What reflection would we see in the clear waters of the Sunken Cathedral? These stories challenge us to find our own hours of stillness in a frantic world, to consciously step off the relentless treadmill of schedules and to-do lists. They invite us to appreciate the breathtaking beauty of a single, fleeting moment with the same intensity as if it were preserved forever, like the blossoms in the field of perpetual bloom. More than that, they urge us to listen, truly listen, for the whispers of ancestral wisdom that are always present beneath the noise of the present, and to remain open to the possibilities of futures yet to unfold. Perhaps the greatest truth these myths hold is not that time can be stopped, but that its ultimate value is shaped by our attention. Time, in the end, is what we choose to make of it. If this exploration has sparked your imagination, we would love to hear from you. Share in the comments a place or a moment you wish could exist outside of time. And if you want to continue these journeys into the heart of mythology, where every story is a doorway to another world, be sure to subscribe.